Okay, let's talk about the world of the unsaid. You know, that whole universe of meaning that exists just beneath the surface of what people actually say. We're going to dive into a skill that lets you see the real story playing out. Oh, you know this feeling. We've all been there, right? Staring at your phone, you see those three little dots. They're pulsing, they're dancing. It's the promise of a reply. And then, poof, they're gone. Just nothing. Just this weird, abrupt digital silence. And that's the whole point, isn't it? You didn't actually get a text, but make no mistake, you absolutely got a message. See, in our lives, both at work and at home, silence is never just empty space. In fact, what isn't said is often way, way louder than what is. So I want you to think about all communication like it's a giant iceberg. This right here, this 10% that you can see sticking out of the water, that's the explicit stuff. It's the email you actually get, the words someone says out loud in a meeting, the numbers you see on a spreadsheet. It's what's clearly stated right out in the open. But the real story, the massive hidden truth of the situation, that's all in the 90% that's lurking underneath the surface. This is the unsaid. It's the pause before somebody answers a tough question. It's the piece of data that's strangely missing from a report. It's that text message that was typed out but never ever sent. If you really want to understand what's going on, you can't just look at the tip. You've got to become a diver. And the tool, the skill that lets you explore that hidden 90%, it's called inference. Now, let's get something straight. Inference isn't just a vibe check or some kind of lucky guess. No way. It is a calculated skill. It's a mental process you use to bridge that gap between what you see and what's really happening. So that's the big question, right? How do we actually do this? How do we train our brains to stop just staring at that little 10% tip and start mapping out that enormous structure hiding underneath? Well, it all starts by adopting a totally different mindset. You see, there are basically two ways to look at the world. On one hand, you have the literalist. For them, if it isn't written down in black and white, it basically doesn't exist. They see a read receipt with no reply, and they just see a blank page. But the analyst, the analyst is different. They know that read receipt followed by silence isn't a blank page, it's the first clue. They don't just see individual facts, they're looking for the connections, the story that ties it all together. And that is what this is all about. This is for you. You're not just a passive consumer of information. You're an architect. You're the one who takes all these little pieces of evidence, the things that are said and the things that are left unsaid, and you build the full picture. You construct the story they aren't telling you directly. This is absolutely crucial. You have to shift your approach. That feeling you get when those three dots disappear, it's so easy to let that spin into anxiety, right? To start guessing and making up all these wild stories in your head. The analyst fights that urge. They don't guess. They calculate. They use the evidence. And yes, the absence of something is evidence to draw a logical conclusion. Okay, so let's just lock in the core ideas here. First, the most important messages, they're usually the ones that are never spoken. Second, the real story is almost always hiding in that massive 90% below the surface. Third, inference is the disciplined skill you use to go exploring down there. And finally, and this is so important, becoming an analyst is a choice. It's a skill you can build. Nobody is just born with it. So we end up right back where we started. But now, you have a new lens to look through. You're the architect. You've got the tools. So think back to that moment, those three dots that just vanished. What's the evidence? What's the context? What is the one-sentence story you can build from that silence? Go on. The unsaid is waiting for you.